My name's John Finch. I work for Audio T, a hi-fi shop that's been trading for about 52 years. I work in the Cheltenham branch and I've worked here for around 39 years, give or take a few months.
Hi, my name's Andy. I also work at Audio T in Cheltenham and started in March 1985. So I've been here for just over 40 years now. So just about getting the hang of this thing. So yeah, it's all good fun.
My name's Farid. I've been working in Audio T in Cheltenham now for around 20 years, just over. Best job I've ever had, best job I'll ever have. And I'm here mainly because I love music. It's a passion of mine. Films a little bit, but not so much, but I do absolutely love music, and I'm grateful and privileged to be doing what I love as a living.
The long story is I went to a company called Rob's Hi-Fi to buy my first serious turntable. And I bought a Ariston RD80. And before I took it home, I happened to go into Absolute Sound and Video, which is the previous name of Audio T, and met a guy called Frank. And he said, when you get it home, check that the arm is perfectly vertical in relation to the plinth. If it's not, it's got a bent sub-chassis. So when I got it home, I unboxed it, checked the arm, and it was bent well over to the left. So I took the RD80 back to Rob's and changed it for a Walker CJ55. On the way home, I went into Absolute Sound and Video, and Frank said, make sure it's got a ribbed platter, not a flat platter, because if it's got a flat platter, it's an old model. So when I got it home, I took it out of the box and it had a flat platter. So I took it back to Rob's and got a refund. And then bought a Walker CJ55 off Frank and became a customer of the shop. And the long and the short of it is he ended up saying, do you want to work for Absolute Sound and Video? And that's how I got the job at Audio T, because I was an irritating customer.
That is also how Farid got the job.
No, he was more irritating.
He was so irritating that it was better to have him working here than have him as a customer. And that's true. I came by this job at Audio T by, first and foremost, I was a customer of a place called West Midlands Audio, where I bought a Riga Planar 3 turntable and an A&R A60 amplifier, and was using that with an existing pair of old speakers that I can't even remember the name of. I think I might have been Wharfdale things. Came time for a speaker upgrade, and I discovered that there was this shop in Cheltenham called Absolute Sound and Video. So I thought I'd pay them a visit, and met a man there called Frank Moran, who was a bit of a sales genius, and he demoed me 3 or 4 different pairs of loudspeakers. I bought a pair of Rogers LS7s, which were nice. They were good things, and was very happy with those for a while. And because Frank was just such an approachable guy, and we had similar tastes in music, and I was just kind of calling the shop regularly just to have a chat, find out what was going on. And then one day found out there was a job vacancy. And Frank said, you should apply. I had a job at the time, but I was working in a bakery, working for my dad. And the hours were like mental, getting up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, yeah, I quite fancy working in a hi-fi shop. So I went for the interview. They offered me the job. The rest is history. Been there ever since.
I used to be, when the shop was round the corner, I used to be a customer. And I was a customer for about 15 years or so. And when they were over here, I started coming in because I used to work in a factory. I got to know John and Andy quite well, and I started coming in on the Thursday because they were opening late When I finished at the factory, I'd come here for the last 2.5 hours and give them a hand and help them. And then I started coming in Saturdays as well, just because I like it, and it was free help for them, and they didn't mind it. And then one day I walked in and John said, "Do you want a job?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Right, okay, we've got a few people to interview, but you know, I like what you've been doing and what we've seen so far. So you've got to come for the interview. Just come and we'll see what." And I got a job like that. So yeah, great.
I'd always been into music. My brother had War of the Worlds and Donna Summer Live in Moore and House of the Rising Sun. And I used to listen to that on a cassette player with a mono earphone. And one day I was in Cheltenham and I was looking for a new portable radio when I went to a place called Ray Electrical. And I don't know what turntable it was, I don't know what amplifier it was, but it was a very early pair of B&W 801s. And I got him to play John and Vangelis' Mayflower on the 801s, and it blew me away. I didn't know that you could get music of that scale and that amount of dynamics out of a hi-fi system, and I was hooked from there on in. That's why I got into hi-fi. I hasten to add that I'm not into hi-fi anymore, I'm into music. But that doesn't matter because I run a hi-fi shop, because all I do is try and sell people the hi-fi that makes the music sound the best to them.
I very first got into music because my mum had this beautiful little Dansette record player thing on 1970s kind of spindly legs. And my uncle used to run the Sports and Social Club at Spirax, which was a factory in Cheltenham over the far side of town. And we used to get all the cast-off singles from their jukebox. So we had piles and piles of all the great singles. Slade, Mud, Queen, Faces, Rod Stewart, David Bowie, Queen. We had them all.
Did you get any good stuff?
Fleetwood Mac.
All right, that'll do.
Albatross. And I would just lose myself. I would lie in front of the speaker, take the legs off, put it on the floor, lie in front of the speaker and just play songs in the dark. And that's my formative music experience. And it was probably listening to things like Albatross by Fleetwood Mac. And that kind of then engendered my love of, first and foremost, prog rock. Although that kind of went via things like The Shadows. A huge, huge regard for Hank Marvin. And in fact, the very first record that I bought with my own money was The Shadows, 20 Golden Greats. And then very shortly after, weirdly, Animals by Pink Floyd. So that's where my musical taste spiraled on from.
My earliest memory is probably when I was a little kid, probably about that high. Well, always around the house there was music. My dad used to have an old record player, pair of speakers, reel-to-reel tape, amplifier, you know, old 1950s, 60s stuff. And they used to have a lot of parties and there was always music going on. Weekends there was music going on. So I think earliest memories is from when I could just about understand what music is, and because of my father, it started from there and always stuck with me. That's a tricky question. That's a double-ended sword. You can't, in my opinion, it's always been, you can't say to people, what music do you like? Most people that like music and come to buy stuff from us like a lot of types of music. There's certain things like, for example, rap, house, I won't listen to, but generally I like a lot. But asking somebody that question, I think a lot of it comes down to, I think the best answer to give is, in my opinion, when people like so many different types of music, what you listen to isn't determined by so much what you like, it's determined by what mood you're in. So if you're feeling a bit down, you're not going to want to put some rock music on and stuff like that, and vice versa. So I think I like a lot of different musics, but if somebody was to ask me a similar question, turn around and say, could you live with one song? Or is there one album you can live with and say, that's my favourite? The answer is no. Because that might be my favourite today, but if I'm in a bad mood tomorrow, I'm going to hate that album, and that's the last thing I want to put on. So generally, yes, a lot of different genres, but can't pinpoint to, that's my favourite, that's my favourite, that's my favourite. Very hard to do, because you get an emotional engagement with music, and that's what moves you, and it depends on what mood you're in.
I very much like progressive rock, but I like pretty much all music that's got talent. So you can discount most music after the year 2010 because most of it hasn't got talent. Previous 2010, I like pretty much all music, but mainly progressive rock.
Cool.
Because they use Taurus bass pedals.
And that, yeah. And Rush, especially.
Sorry, what? Taurus bass pedal. It's when you hear a very, very deep sound on a piece of rock music, it's normally a Taurus bass pedal. They're playing a keyboard with their feet, and that's how they get the very, very low bass notes. Those are the ones that rock concerts make your trousers flap, which is
like organ
an amazing sensation.
Yeah. My favourite musical genre, without a shadow of a doubt, is progressive rock. So that kind of echoes John's a little bit, but I just think I go into it in a bit more detail. I just love old prog rock bands, King Crimson, Yes, Genesis, Van der Graaf Generator, all the way up through to the kind of newer ones via bands like Marillion, IQ. Then you get into the newer things like Riverside, Glass Hammer, Spock's Beard, the Flower Kings, Porcupine Tree, Echo Lynn. Even this year, there's just been some amazing prog rock bands, and they've just brought out some amazing albums. Cause of Sui, yeah. There's so many of them, and I can thoroughly recommend lots of them.
I don't really have favourite bands, but if I did have a favourite band, it probably would be Rush, because I got into them at a very, very early stage, and I still listen to Rush now, especially 2112 on the 21st of December, because it has to be done. But yes, I've seen a lot of live bands.
We actually celebrate National Rush Day as well, which is the 21st of December, hence the 2112, whereby we play all the albums from the beginning. Well, up to a point, because they get a bit pants after.
Grace Under Pressure is not very good.
No, I like Grace Under Pressure. What's the one after that?
Roll the Bones.
Yeah, that's probably where it gets a bit pants.
I think.
Yeah. But I don't think the music gets rubbish. It just sounds too digital, and they lose.
Too modern.
Yeah. It doesn't sound as analogue-y as it used to. We like analogue sounding bands. Well, without a doubt, my favourite gig is still when I went to see Pink Floyd do The Wall in 1980. It's kind of a seminal thing, and I'm just so glad I was there. Yeah, and I can still remember and building the wall and crashing the Stuka dive bomber into it from the back. And I was directly underneath it when it came over. Beautiful concert. Who else have I seen? I saw the Smiths, which were great. New Order, Hawkwind a few times. There's a little local band run by the manager of Badlands record shop called Longstone, who I've got a lot of time for. You should look them up. They're really good. They're a 5-piece band consisting of 2 guys on synths and electronics, a drummer, guitar player, and the genius who is Chris Cundy doing saxophones and things over the top. When they get going, they're just immense, and I love Longstone. I'm
not a great live music fan. I always found, I went to one or two maybe concerts, and I always found it a bit too real for me. That's not how I like listening to music personally, and it's always too loud as well. So I've never been a great fan of live stuff. I've always much preferred listening to my music in front of a hi-fi. You know, the sound I like, the sound that's going to be constant, what I built around myself and something to my own taste. And I do like listening to a lot of music, sitting down on my own and listening to music, and I do get a lot of pleasure from it. But live, I'm just one of those people that the live thing has never been a great attraction or a pull for me.
The formats I use are vinyl, CD and streaming.
What about cassette, Kish?
So if I'm trying out new music, I'll listen to stuff on Quobus. If I decide that I really like the new music, I will buy the CD because my CD player sounds significantly better than my streamer. And all of the older music I've got is on vinyl, so I still listen to vinyl. So I wouldn't say, I think if you want the ultimate sound quality, vinyl is the best, followed by CD, followed by streaming. But it's a very close run thing. I wouldn't say that I don't enjoy listening to music on streaming because it's not as good as having the vinyl. I just enjoy listening to music.
And also these days, of course, there's a lot of music that's only listenable on streaming platforms.
Or vinyl. Like Rick Waite and The Burning.
Yeah.
And Emerson, Lake and
And
Palmer
there's a
live
lot
in
of bands
Poland.
who don't bother with CD. It's definitely becoming a trend that it's just vinyl or on streaming. And cassette, actually, saying that. What do I like listening to the most? Vinyl, streaming or CD? I do also like cassette. I could add that to the mix. I do play cassettes and I do record on them still. But first and foremost, I am a vinyl fan. I use streaming, but I use streaming to find music that I will then go out and purchase on vinyl. Because without a doubt, there's something about vinyl that just makes things sound more open, more natural, more realistic, and you can close your eyes and fall into the music rather than digital formats which tend to make it sound flatter, and I'm not so much into that.
Shows how much mankind has gone backwards, that 100-year-old technology is still the best.
Still the best.
And we can't beat it.
And it's still improving as well.
Yeah. And it's not going to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, vinyl again. Generally these days, and probably for the past 4 years or so, I've found myself what I'm doing is I'll buy a CD, but I'll buy the vinyl as well if it's available. And 95% of what I buy on both. If I want to sit down and really listen and really get involved and just have a nice evening, I'll put the vinyl on. If I want to just have a couple of tracks from there, a couple of tracks from there, sit down, maybe listen to this CD or stuff I haven't got on vinyl, then I'll quite happily sit down and spend the evening listening to CD as well. So until I bought this other CD player, it's harder for me to say I've got a preference because I like them both, because I enjoy them both so much. I don't stream because I don't have internet, and to be honest with you, my experience of streaming in the shop and all the different streamers and things like that is I don't think I could sit down and listen to it. CD and vinyl, I do prefer vinyl, but I've about 2 years ago bought an Arcam CD player, CDS50, and I find that incredibly analog. And what that has done to my CD collection is I no longer have a big CD collection and say, well, these are the ones that I will listen to if I have to. These I'll never listen to because of the sound quality, and I'll always listen to these. Now I enjoy all of them because it's made all my CDs sound very warm and analog. So Andy's heard it a couple of times as well, and he actually mentioned one. He said, your CD player sounds just like a turntable. And it was only £800 retail, so you don't have to spend a lot of money to get a good sound. It's just knowing how to put it together.
As a hi-fi system, I like it to be clean, open, detailed, but not bright. I like things to be on the warm side, but I'm just a fan of music, so I think I can listen to music on pretty much anything. But yeah, there are certain things that I don't like a hi-fi system to do, and I don't like it to be bright, but that wouldn't be a total deal breaker. But yeah, smooth, open and detailed. Can't go wrong.
I like quite an effortless, easy, smooth and warm dynamic sound. It's got to be open, but it's got to be easy to listen to. You know, not you have to sit down and concentrate. It's not about being the most open, the most dynamic, and you've got to hear everything. It's got to be about, my opinion always has been, you'll know when the system is right for you, because you'll sit in front of it and immediately you're drawn to the music and you completely and utterly stop judging what each bit of the hi-fi is doing because you're listening to the music. Different ways for different people, but mine is very much, I'd say probably the 70s and 80s sound, where it's quite a effortless, warm, smooth, easy to listen to sound. And that's what I like.
My own system hadn't changed for a very, very long time, and I've just changed the CD player. But I use a Lin Sondek with a Riga arm, and before anybody says it, Riga arms do work on Sondeks. You just have to modify the Sondek. I use an Audiolab CD player, an Audiolab D2A converter, a Riga Ethos amplifier, the biggest bargain in hi-fi at the moment, and a Blue Sound Node streamer that also goes through the Audiolab DAC. And my TV goes through the Audiolab DAC, so I've got one of the best TV sounds you can get. And a pair of Acoustic Energy AE520 loudspeakers.
Oh, nearly forgot those. Don't forget that, that's probably the most important bit.
Yeah.
My hi-fi system at home consists of a Riga P7 turntable, and I have a Creek preamp power amp and a Creek CD player and a pair of Name Intro loudspeakers, all of which is now about 25 years old, but I still love it, still sounds beautiful, and it's just great at playing music. And might upgrade one day, but I don't feel any pressure to. Sounds good. I've got the speakers on ISO Acoustics Gaia feet, which when I tried them just made such a difference. They were staying for definite. My CD player sits on ISO Acoustics Oreos, which made a big difference. I've got some nice interconnects, Chord Company interconnects. I even get a little bit tweaky with the totem beaks, which are designed to sit on top of loudspeakers to filter vibrations up out of the speaker cabinets. But perversely, I find that my turntable sounds really good sat on top of them. So that is sat on top of these totem beaks. And yeah, just sounds nice, just plays music. And I spend way too much money on vinyl. Mainly prog rock vinyl.
Mm.
And weird fucked up shit, as you and John call it.
Yeah. Okay, my turntable is a Garrard 401 from the 1960s. I was actually put onto that by a customer of ours because he found out what sort of sound I like, and he hit the nail right on the head. It is exactly what I like. My amplifier is a 30-year-old amplifier, an Arcam Alpha 9 that still works, sounds great. My CD player is an older generation, not very old though, CDS 50 by Arcam, also sounds great. A pair of Acoustic Energy AE500 stand mount speakers and a Rel T0, and it gives me exactly the sound I like. Effortless, airy, easy to listen to, warm and smooth. The T0, I've got a number of Rel subs at home and I've tried them all in the hi-fi, and they all do great things, as they're supposed to, in particular in music. But there's just something magical about the T0 that has a certain warmth and engagement. And I've set it completely wrong, compared to rather than having the dials all the way down where they should be. I've set them quite high. And it's just really opened the system up and given it this warmth. And my friend of mine, my best mate, he's got the same speakers as me, and he's put 2 T0s on his, and he's found exactly the same. I just don't know what it is about them, but for music, for my kind of taste and that warmth and effortlessness, it's just superb. And it's not stupid money either.
If making a mono Dan set record player stereo by adding another speaker onto it, yes. But that's as far as I've really gone. I've done a lot of modifications on things. So I once did an evening where I took a pair of JPW P1 loudspeakers that were cheap bookshelf loudspeakers that had cheap wiring, all tagged, the drive units weren't sealed, and I dismantled the speakers, sealed all the drive units in, hardwired them with Lin K20, so they were soldered, not tagged, and then did a musical evening and showed people the difference between a modified speaker and an unmodified speaker, and spent the next 3 months selling JPW P1s for a very cheap price and having to modify them for customers. So I never did that again.
That'll teach you to try and be helpful.
Nice, okay.
Have I ever dabbled in making my own gear? Nope. Because it's just way easier trusting people who've been doing it for years. I'll change and upgrade cartridges and things like that, but I don't get involved with making or building. No.
Now, the person that really influenced me was Frank. Frank was a very big influence on me, and another director at the time called Pete Bogle was a very big influence on me, and taught me to just be myself and sell hi-fi. And they were the 2 big influences on me. And obviously Jerry, that owned Absolute Sound and Video, was an influence, because we used to have managers meetings quite often then. So yeah, mainly the 3 directors when I joined Audio T were a big influence on me.
This could develop into one of those Oscar acceptance speeches.
And Mike, of course.
Yeah. And your mum and dad?
No.
Mainly people who work in record shops. That's a bit sad, isn't it? Where actually, saying that, next door to where we are now used to be a record shop called Drifting, which was brilliant and was run by a mad boffin magician guy called Roger, and he put me on the path to loads of crack rock bands, jazz music, some of that kind of more left field prog rock. Van der Graaf Generator, that was one of his recommendations. So I owe Roger quite a lot. Also, there was my old English teacher, Mrs. James, who she was just a genius. She made us listen to, in English, Dark Side of the Moon, and then write a review on Dark Side of the Moon. And that changed my life. Being made to listen to something you think, yeah, Dark Side of the Moon, what's this rubbish? Gonna hate this. But yeah, I loved it. And wrote the review. And I think she probably started my love of proper music. Previous to that, it was, like I mentioned, Slade, Mud, Sweet, that kind of thing. And from there, it took a bit of a twist. So Mrs. James, my English teacher, genius. Loved her then, still do.
I wouldn't say influence. I think it's music-wise, I've just always liked music, and if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. I'll buy it or I won't buy it. But hi-fi, I don't think, apart from the fact that I grew up liking music, it's just an interest I've always had, and I've always been into hi-fi. So I wouldn't say anybody's necessarily influenced me into getting this or getting that or getting the other. It's just more something I've always enjoyed and wanted to do. It's like if you're into cars, you don't say, I'm into cars because this guy influenced me. You're usually into cars because you just like mechanics. You like the car. You like dabbling with them. You like buying and selling. Same with that. So I wouldn't say anybody's necessarily influenced me. It's just interest I've had and been lucky enough to come across people that have helped me along the way.
If I'm going to regret anything hi-fi I've ever sold, it would be my Spendor S9 loudspeakers.
They were good.
I moved to a house where they didn't work, so I sold them, and I should have hidden them somewhere. Other than that, no. I don't. Hi-fi is a way of listening to music. I'm not precious about hi-fi in the slightest. It's all about making music sound good.
Gems and unicorns in the hi-fi world. Lynn, Sarah loudspeakers. They were nice, and I owned a pair for a couple of years, and they were beautiful. I sold them because my wife hated the look of them, because they were, to be honest, a little bit ugly, but they sounded great. And I still find myself on eBay looking to see if there are any nice pairs nearby that don't cost a shed load of money. But they're so old now that they're just, every time a pair comes up, they're a bit beaten up, or the tweeters have been poked in, or the grills have disintegrated. So I think I'll just remember how good my pair sounded and just, yeah, stick with that.
I used to have a little amplifier by a company called Belcanto. It was a digital amplifier. Retailed at £1,800, and it would drive anything you put in front of it as loud as, and I mean stupid loud, with no distortion, very clean, and didn't sound loud. That's one. And the other one, I had a pair of Focal Micro Utopia loudspeakers. And at the time I had a problem with my ear, and I narrowed it down to what I thought was a problem, and that was the speakers and the beryllium tweeter. And as it turns out, it wasn't. It was a trapped nerve. So I got rid of that for no reason. And so they're probably the two that I do really regret. That amplifier was just £1,800, and I can guarantee you can spend 10 grand on an amp and you'll sit in front of it and go, that's really nice, but it's not doing what the Belcanto does. And then they brought out new versions of the amps. I've tried them and they're awful. So it's gone.
Hi-fi in the 70s and 80s, or mainly 80s when I started, was easy because it was turntables, amplifiers and speakers. And then if you really wanted to, you could put a radio or a tuner on it and a cassette deck if you wanted to record music. And there were distinct levels that you bought a good turntable, a good amplifier and a good pair of speakers. Then you bought a better turntable and a better turntable, then a better amplifier, then a better pair of speakers. So the upgrade synergy was very, very easy. Now it's incredibly complicated. But our job is to sort the wheat from the chaff for our customers and say, this is what a good hi-fi system should sound like. And you don't need to listen to 300 pairs of loudspeakers, 300 amplifiers and 60 streamers. If you identify which are the good ones, it's still quite easy. But they get, the internet has made it quite difficult for people because there's just too much choice.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there is an awful lot more choice now. But saying that, I think there's an awful lot more good products now. Whereas in that kind of late 70s, early to mid 80s, I think there were a lot of things around that were just rubbish. They were all right, actually, but they just always went wrong. They were awful things.
There was one Christmas where we ordered 20 NAD 3130s.
You want to record this? This is...
Yeah. And me, Andy and Frank had a piece of paper with stickers on it. And I would put red stickers on 3130s.
And this was in the days where we had like 15, 20 of these amps.
Andy would put yellow
because
stickers
they
on.
sold so much.
And Frank would put green stickers on in the competition to see who could get the most back faulty.
Wow. Who's that bad? Yeah.
It was entertaining though, wasn't it? Say, hey up, here's an ad amp coming back for repair. What colour stickers it got on it? Say, yes, one of mine.
Nice.
There's more good products around these days than there used to be. So I think things have come on over the years. It's nice to know that vinyl is still the best format. It was then. CD came out. Everybody said how good it was. It was a case of the king's new clothes, I think. Marketing companies trying to convince you that CD was the future when it very blatantly wasn't. I think it just sounded very bright then. Probably does still sound a little bit bright now.
Depends on the player, because you've heard nice CD players.
Yeah, there are some quite analogy sounding CD players around. And yeah, I think we try and sort out the wheat from the chaff. And if it does sound rubbish, it won't be in the shop.
My personal view on the thing is that I think the industry has spent a number of years now, until recently, thinking that the right thing to do is produce a system that gets everything out of the groove so you can hear everything and everything's in the right place. And with a lot of systems, what that does, it makes it a little bit sterile, and the more detail it digs out, the more the fun disappears. Whereas in the 70s and 80s and things like that, I think systems were a lot more fun. They weren't as open, as dynamic or anything as they are now, but you used to really enjoy listening to them, and I think that's what it's all about. And I think there's a few manufacturers now starting to realise that, and realise that people are actually, there's more and more people looking for that sort of sound. So a lot more stuff that's coming out, I think, is starting to sound a little bit like it used to 20, 30 years, 40 years ago.
I've come across very few rooms that I can't make a hi-fi work in.
There are some rooms that you can go into and you instantly know they're going to sound good.
Yeah.
Or they're going to sound rubbish. So if there's like a lot of glass or hard wooden floors, or God forbid, both, and very little furniture,
you know
they're going to sound bright and echoey.
And you can't do anything to treat that room. There's nothing you can do,
because people just say, no, that's the way it's got to be. So they just have to put up with the hi-fi in that room. But then saying that, sometimes you get rooms that are just beautiful and they've got kind of like lots of books on bookshelves, thick carpets, rugs, pictures on the walls, and they are the best rooms. And you don't have to do anything to treat them. In fact, I think if you did try and treat them, you'd make it sound worse.
The only time you should treat a room is when you've got a hi-fi that's so good, it takes a lot of improving. Then start working on the room. But most people that treat rooms are treating rooms because their hi-fi is not right for that room.
Cool.
It's like we say to people, don't buy big speakers. And they buy big speakers and then go, they're boomy. Told you.
Okay.
In general, room treatment, I think it should probably be avoided, because I think people generally try and treat their rooms to try and put right faults with their hi-fi, or to correct things that they don't like about their hi-fi system. Unless, of course, you have a room that's just like all glass and all solid wood with like no soft furnishings, then it's just going to sound echoey and harsh. And there's very little you can do with that. But also then people are prone to saying, no, I don't want to go down that room treatment because I don't want big kind of circular columns in the corner, and I don't want rugs all over the walls and that kind of thing. So yeah, a lot of time you've just got to find a hi-fi system that will work in the room rather than treat the room.
Cool. I would say get a system that suits the room. Don't try and treat the room. It depends. If you've got a system and you move and you love your system, treating the room won't necessarily make you like the system again. So it might be easier just to start with a system, rebuilding a new system that you like. But I've never been a great fan of treating rooms unless it's absolutely necessary. And if you've got a room that needs that much treatment, should you be playing music in it? I think not. But I've never been a great fan. But I know that some people use it and say, yeah, it's the best thing they've done.
The music scene in Cheltenham is nowhere near as good as it used to be. You can find bands to see if you know where to go and what to look for. 25 years ago, you could come into town and go and watch a band that you knew. You know, in Cheltenham, I've seen the Enid, Osric Tentacles.
Porcupine Tree played.
Going
back,
I saw John
Jimi
Martin
Hendrix
at the town hall. It's just very rare now to get a decent concert in Cheltenham because Cheltenham Borough Council have sold off all the venues to make them into flats. Not that I'm bitter or anything.
I like the music scene in Cheltenham because it's kind of small and acoustic and experimental, and you can go to a gig for less than a tenner and you can sit right up close to the band. You can meet the band after. It sounds good because it's not in big stadiums where it just sounds echoey and rubbish, and it doesn't sound shit like Coldplay. And there's a little band in Cheltenham called Longstone who have become my favourite band, and they're amazing. I would thoroughly recommend anybody to look up music by them. It's out there on Bandcamp and Spotify, and go and see them live, because live it's an entirely mega monstrous thing. They sound amazing.
I don't think there are any hi-fi manufacturers left in Cheltenham. I could be wrong.
Don't think there is there?
Void turntables used to be made in Cheltenham.
The Cheltenham, I think, is pretty non-existent apart from the shops.
The shops and our customers.
There's a cafe that has opened recently that has purportedly a nice hi-fi system in it. I think it's Technics gear, Technics decks, and a big pair of JBL loudspeakers, but I've not been there yet to have a listen. So the jury's still out on that one. Nice. The music scene in Cheltenham definitely benefits from having a couple of really good record shops. There's Badlands, who do mainly new gear, and there's the Vinyl Vault, who do exclusively second-hand gear. And if either one of those disappeared, I'd be very upset. There's a guy who works in Badlands called Lucas, who's a bit of a genius. You can go in and you can say, got anything good? And you can walk out with an armful of really nice things. And I love that.
Yeah, we've known him for a very long time. And his brother-in-law works for Acoustic Energy. My wife works for Acoustic Energy. We know Matt, known him for a long time.
And James used to work for us.
James used to work for us, so we know James very well.
We know them all really well. But luckily they do happen to make some really good loudspeakers that punch way above their weight.
Yeah.
So
but I think we've got a fairly good relationship with a lot of our suppliers.
Yeah.
We've been doing it long enough that we know a lot of the suppliers and we can talk to them quite easily. So, yeah, I think we've got a good relationship with most of our suppliers.
And of course they're local.
And they're local.
Based in Tetbury. So it's good to support the locals.
We were originally in Albion Street, and it was called Absolute Sound and Video. And towards the end of having that shop, the name changed to Audio T because we merged with another couple of companies, and the decision was taken to change the name to Audio T. And then 25 years ago, we moved to this premises.
It was 25 years.
And been here ever since.
In September 2000, we moved into this.
And the moral of that story is don't move a hi-fi shop, it's a lot of work.
I was on holiday that week, so I missed that.
I think the brands that we carry that I prefer are the ones that offer exceptional value for money. And in those we included Riga, Acoustic Energy, Dyne Audio,
Neat Acoustics.
Neat Acoustics. You've got to remember that what you've got to remember is that we're into music, and when we put a hi-fi together, it's to make music sound really good. So we don't always go straight towards, oh, that's the most expensive, that must sound the best. That's not always the case. If you get the synergy right in a system, you can spend a lot less money than you think to get an amazing sounding system. But we're very good at saying to customers, that sounds great, but now listen to this system that costs more than they want to spend, that also sounds incredibly good and better than the previous system, and we still take more money off them. That's what our job is.
But basically, we won't sell it if we don't like it.
But we only send people, in ideal scenarios, we just send people away with amazingly good sounding systems, no matter what they spend. But the more the better.
Good fun.
It's all right.
It doesn't actually feel like coming to work.
It does feel like coming to work.
Perhaps it's just for you because you're the manager. So
Yeah,
it
does feel like coming to work.
The buck stops with you.
Everybody thinks I'm doing my hobby, and I'm not doing my hobby. I'm doing something I'm interested in. Hi-fi is not my hobby anymore. Music is my hobby.
Yeah.
I just happen to sell stuff that plays music. Obviously, it's very good that I can come to work and listen to music all day. That's one of the big bonuses. But it's still a job. I'm still running a shop.
I can't comment about other ones because I've not worked in any other ones, but in this one it's great. It's an easy job. As the saying goes, do a job you really enjoy, you'll never do a day's work in your life, and it's true. I personally don't know anybody that does a hobby for a living and gets paid for it. I do, and it's lovely.
Are there any? I can't think of any brands that I really miss. Because the good products...
Walker turntables, Clearwater speakers.
Clearwater speakers, they were good, yeah.
There are people that have come and gone that made very good equipment.
But all the companies that were making really good equipment are still there. Like there's Riga, there's Lynn,
they've always been bought by people.
Rotal. There's new companies like Advanced Paris, which have sprung up.
There aren't many hi-fi companies that are still owned by the original people. Yeah. Riga. Roy Gandy still owns Riga.
What about Neat?
Bob still owns Neat.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
But other than that, Spendor's not owned by the people that started Spendor. Name's not owned by well, obviously Julian Verica died. Ivor T from Brun no longer runs Lynn.
His son does, though.
So they're not as good, but obviously we've been doing it for so long that we remember the original companies. So it's not to say anything's bad about the current companies. It's just we remember the original companies. Yeah. We remember Ivor T from Brun coming in and telling us we were deaf.
So everybody else's turntables are rubbish apart from mine.
Correct. Especially pink triangles.
Maybe Garrod. Garrod might be one because just makes you think, you know, if they were doing that back then and they're still that popular, their turntables now, 60-year-old turntable, what would they be doing now? But no, I would say the worrying thing from my point of view is more the fact that there are these companies just buying up these brands, and quite a few of them not doing a very good job of it because they haven't got the emotional engagement, they haven't got the musicality, they're not into all of it. They just see it as, well, if I buy that, how much money can I make out of it? That's when things go wrong, and that's a real shame.
Standout moments really are putting systems into people's houses and being absolutely blown away by them.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I like that.
One particular customer that's very into home cinema, his system got to the stage where anybody that saw it wouldn't go to the cinema because it was rubbish in comparison. Those are the sort of standout moments where you think, I didn't realise things could be that good.
Yeah.
And putting a system into a customer's house, and it doesn't have to be a really expensive system, putting a record on and going, that sounds really good, and I missed quite a few words out there, and being astonished at how good it actually sounds, and leaving that customer's house and knowing how happy that system is going to make them. That's the standout things. Not, oh, I listened to a pair of speakers that are £250,000. Oh, I listened to this that was this expensive. And most of those, and I've done a lot of those, I've heard some very, very expensive kit. A lot of it's been very underwhelming. It's a system that isn't that expensive that just sounds gobsmackingly good. That's a standout moment.
Standout moments, there's many and varied standout moments. It's like when you've worked your first Bristol Hi-Fi show and got to the end and you think, yeah, that was good. And that kind of thing, talking to people, meeting different people. And the other side of the coin is setting people up with nice hi-fi systems, and you get the gratification that comes from that. I love that feeling. Playing people music that they've not heard before and having them go, wow, what's this? I haven't heard that. I've got to buy a copy of this. I love that kind of moment as well. That's the kind of thing that stands out. Yeah, it's just a beautiful thing when that happens. I love it. I think the Bristol Hi-Fi show started as a money-making thing. How can we make more money? Oh, I know, let's have a show.
The Bristol show...
And I think it worked.
Lots of people were doing shows, and Jerry and Tony decided to do a show. So we did a show, and it was very successful.
Yeah. I think
they were very different originally to what they are now.
It rode that zeitgeist at the time, didn't it? And
yeah, I certainly remember the first show going down to the bar on the Sunday morning, and there was still about 30 people in the bar. They'd been there all night. And people didn't turn up to open their rooms because they had been in the bar all night. But the Bristol show's always had a great atmosphere. And it's been a very successful show. And I did lots of them. And I gave up a while ago. Because I prefer to run the shop when the Bristol show's on and let these guys go and do it.
I love working the Bristol Hi-Fi show. Such good fun. And you meet so many different types of people from the hi-fi world and from the general public, so many different kinds, all kinds in between, music fans, hi-fi fans, yeah, I also love the Hi-Fi Show because you can buy lots of good vinyl there. And you don't have to pay for the food. Which is important.
Very important.
Yeah. But it just seems to go from strength to strength, doesn't it? And every year you just think, can we better that? But every time it just kind of does get better.
Stop listening to phones. They
Good.
sound rubbish.
Yes.
Come into the shop and listen to a cheap hi-fi system, you'll be gobsmacked. To a lot of other people, don't take hi-fi too seriously. If you listen to it and it sounds good, buy it. If it doesn't sound good, don't buy it. If a reviewer says it sounds good and you think it sounds rubbish, it's probably because it sounds rubbish. If a reviewer said it's not very good and you listen to it and it sounds really good, it's probably really good.
This man's very wise.
Trust your ears. Trust your hi-fi dealer, because we've been doing it for a very long time.
That's very important.
And we want to take money off you. So we're not going to tell you to buy rubbish. We're going to tell you to buy what we think will make you enjoy the music the most, so you give us money.
It's when people come
That's how retail works.
People come into the shop and they say, oh, have you got? And they reel off this long list of things that we haven't got, and chances are we never have or never will. When what they should really say is, they should come into the shop and they should say, what's the best sound that you can make for this amount of money?
Yeah. That's what we do.
Yeah.
If you come into the shop and say, I want to buy a system for this much money, we will sell you what we consider to be the best hi-fi shop, the best hi-fi system for that amount of money. But do bear in mind that we probably will add 50% to the value you say. Because if you can afford to spend £2,000, you can afford 3.
Yeah.
So true.
Bit on it. That's a bit of honesty, but that's what we do. We're here to make a retail business run. But in doing it, we can make our customers really happy by selling them really good hi-fis. That's what it's all about. I've had a customer, and it was when the shop was round the corner. He was a bank manager. He came in. He said, I want to buy a hi-fi. I said to him, what's your budget? And he gave me a budget. I took him into the den room. He spent 5 times more than he expected to spend. At one point, he was in tears on the sofa because he had never heard that particular piece of opera music sound so good. It made him cry. And I went round, I installed the system, and a week later, he came into the shop on a Saturday morning. He opened the door. He looked quite angry and he said, I've got a bloody bone to pick with you. And I said, what's that? He said, I haven't been to bed for a week. And he was listening to music. That's what makes it worthwhile.
I think the best advice really is use your own ears and your own heart. You'll know when you hear a system that's good for you. If you've never heard a good system, go to a shop and hear it, then you'll understand what music can do to you. And we've had quite a few customers, I've had quite a few customers over the years where I've said to them, you know, you don't actually listen to music with your heart, with your ears, you listen with your heart. You get an emotional connection. And when you get a good system that does that, it really makes you want to listen to music more and more and more. And a lot of them look at you funny or they don't understand. But when they buy a system, quite often they will come back and say, I now get what you mean. And you're right. I love music and I couldn't be without it. That's really nice as well when that happens. Go to a shop that knows what it's doing, listen to a system and hear what it can be. That's the first thing, because you can stand there till you're blue in the face telling a young person blah, 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 blah. But unless they hear it, they're not going to understand it. And they're not going to get it. And I think the reason why a lot of young people have started getting into vinyl and into hi-fi and things like that is because this resurgence of vinyl, I'm convinced that it's because a lot of people of my age and fathers and things like that have been getting their vinyl out, playing it, and the kids are sitting down thinking, that sounds nice. And I'm sure that's helped a lot of bands as well, old bands, have a resurgence as well, because not only are they saying, that sounds nice, the music's not bad. So, yeah, I think if you're young and you haven't had much experience, you need to go to a shop, you need to experience it, you need to hear it, to even be able to start comprehending and understanding what can be achieved, what it can do for you.
Any extracurricular hi-fi activities? Yes.
Radio.
We did a radio thing, didn't we? What was it called? Radio Cotswolds.
Yeah, twice so
Cotswold
far.
Confidential, with a guy called Jamie, who was really sweet. We've done that a couple of times, a 2-hour radio show where we take along a few of our favourite pieces of music and then just talk about music and hi-fi.
You want to make it a quarterly thing. So,
Yeah, we'll be doing
once
that
every
again.
3 months or so.
Keep an eye out for
Yeah.
us on Cotswold Confidential, because we're good. What else was there? Oh, I've got a little music club that we get together once a month and play things. We have a theme that we introduce for the evening, and we just play.
What, dress up?
No, musical theme. Although, yeah, perhaps we should. That's good fun. I really enjoy that. And you get to hear musics that you wouldn't normally. Apart from that, yeah, not much else. But that's enough, I think. Talking of prog rock, this one is just beautiful and is quite possibly my go-to test record. This is Crime of the Century by Supertramp. And on here is a beautiful piece of music called Rudy, which is quite possibly one of the best things that human beings have ever recorded. It's big, it's open, it's detailed. When the bass comes in, it should have proper slam and attack. So I thoroughly recommend that you listen to that to help choose your hi-fi. Porcupine Tree. Beautiful. An album called In Absentia. It's kind of newer prog rock, although this is I think this album's probably 20 odd years old now. Porcupine Tree and Stephen Wilson, can't go wrong with any of their stuff. Side 1, track 1 is a track called Blackest Eyes, which is beautiful. It goes from full-on prog metal to gentle, more acoustic-y stuff, just like that, and it's great. This is good for selling hi-fi systems. Mezzanine by Massive Attack. The beautiful vocals of Liz Fraser from Cocteau Twins on that. London Grammar.
First track.
Side 1, track 1, Hey Now. Beautiful piece of music.
Moderately modest price hi-fi sound expensive. That does it.
Has to be on vinyl. The streaming version of that sounds pants. Vinyl, beautiful. And I love it when she swears. Nils Petter Molviar, an ECM record label supergroup. Nils Petter plays trumpet, guitar, bass, percussion, samples, all kinds of malarkey. There's a beautiful guitar player on here called Eivind Arset, who adds these wonderful guitar textures to the background. It's beautifully recorded, big soundstage, plenty of bass welly. Lump, the beautiful Laura Marling. This album quite possibly has the deepest bass on it you will ever hear. And it's wonderful, and I've got a green vinyl copy as well. This is a bit of a weird one, because I never thought I would like Blur. And you kind of think of Blur as a little bit poppy and a little bit laddish, perhaps. But there's a track on here called Jets that is just wonderful. Starts off, you know that sound where it's like old-fashioned, like it's played on a 78? Starts off sounding like that and then morphs into this bass monster funk thing and finishes up as free jazz. Oh, what's not to like? It's even got a cover by that famous man whose name I can't remember. What's his name? Banksy. Oh. And apparently he did this just for Blur.
You know why they call it free jazz?
Free jazz.
Because they can only
Can't give it away. So yeah.
That's it. Very nice.
Very nice.